Okay, so in this module, we're going to continue where we left off in the previous module on vSphere networking. I want to do a couple demonstrations here. So we're at our home screen at the vSphere web client. We'll go to our host and cluster view. We'll work with the host that we recently added to this vCenter server, the ESXi5. So we'll continue working with that host. If we click on the host here and go on manage, recall these tabs we went through previously. So the host, then go on manage, and we went through some of these settings previously, and next to settings we have network in there. Okay, so let's start from the top here. So we have our vSwitch here. This is our uplink going back to our physical network. Let's just assume this was physical. Okay, we have our management network port group here, our VM kernel port group, sorry, and then we have our VM network port group at the bottom. Okay, by default these were created. This is basically the IP address that we connect to our management network, so we would have configured this during installation or at the DC UI. So this here is our default VM network where we could assign virtual machines. If you notice here, we have one virtual machine running on this. This was from our previous video where we were testing the deployment of the vCenter server appliance. Okay, so a couple things here. We could add, if we click this little icon with the plus sign, we could make some configuration changes in this virtual network. Firstly, we could add VM kernel adapter. We might need additional VM kernel adapters for IP storage, for vMotion traffic, NFS traffic. That's where we would use the VM kernel adapter setting. Here, physical adapter, we'll manage our physical adapters with this, and then we could create virtual machine port group at the bottom. So that's that icon. Here we could refresh our settings. Okay, that's the arrow going in a circle. This is where we'll manage our physical adapters. So currently we have one active adapter. Okay, we don't have any standby or unused adapter here. So this is in the context of the vSwitch 0, which is the default vSwitch that has been created. Okay, so this is where if we want to migrate our VM kernel network, we'll use that icon. This is to edit the pencil. This is basically to edit the config for the actual vSwitch. I don't want to get into detail here because we'll cover this in our advanced vSphere course. So basic things like security, traffic shaping, your failover policies, those would be configured there. Okay, so the red X is to delete our vSwitch. So we wouldn't do that now. Okay, so coming down in the list, we have our VM kernel adapters. So let me just expand this out here. Okay, if I could get my mouse, yeah. Okay, so by default, we have VM kernel 0, and this is our management network. It's running on the vSwitch 0, and this is the IP address for that interface. It's on the default TCP IP stack. Okay, and if we come across, these are the different types of VM kernel ports we could create. If you notice here, this is enabled for management traffic. So we could create another one for vMotion traffic, for fault tolerance, login, provisioning, traffic. Um, so all the others would be disabled except for our management, which was enabled by default during installation. Okay, and these are the same icons we have here too. So we could add network into this, or we could refresh. Okay, so coming down in this list here, the VM NIC, these are basically our uplink that goes back to our physical network. If you notice, this is tied to the vSwitch. VMNIC 0 is tied to the vSwitch 0. We have some basic configuration detail here, like our actual speed of the interface. It's auto-negotiated MAC address. Okay, so this one here, this one isn't assigned to any vSwitch currently. We'll work with this in a little bit though. Okay, and once you click on the interface, you have some additional details about it. If you come down at the bottom, you'll see the type of interface. If you are running CDP on your physical switches, you could have some detail about that here. Or if you're running LLDP, you could have that. But I don't have that in my environment here, so we won't be dealing with that. Alright, so this is our stack configuration. We wouldn't get into detail with that for now. And this is basically where in the advanced menu here is where we would enable or disable IPv6 support. Okay, so let's come back from the start here and go through some of these settings. If you notice, so this is our virtual switch, vSwitch 0, and then in our virtual switch, currently the management network is selected. Notice I could click on the VM network and then the menu changes to that. Okay. Look what happened now if I was to open another host. Okay, so we are at the virtual switch menu. You see, so it takes me to the ESXi1 context on the same virtual switch menu. Okay, in this one we have some more configuration on. So let's just head over back to our ESXi5. Okay, so here we could edit the default VM kernel port. So if I hit the edit button there, I could rename the network. I could assign a VLAN ID to this. As I mentioned, we'll leave these other topics for our advanced course. Security, the traffic shaping, and failover. We'll leave that for later. I could go ahead and delete the management network port group here with the red X, or I could go ahead and delete this one at the bottom, the VM. Once I select this, I could delete the VM network. This is our physical adapter, or our VM NIC over on the right here. So let's go in and make some changes on this. Let's go ahead and create another port group. So let's call this so we create another port group, and we could create this on the existing vSwitch, so vSwitch 0. Let's just give this a name. Let's just call this production. Okay, so this is our, let's just call this production VM. This is our production VM network. We could assign a VLAN here. So in the drop down list you have none or all, but what you could do is just highlight and just type in a number. So we select next, then finish. Okay, so now we have a different port group listed here for our virtual machines. Okay, what we could do now is go into our host, onto our VM. In our VM now, if we were to go to manage and then our settings for the VM, if you were to edit that, okay, if you were to edit the settings for a VM and then come under network adapter here, we would have the option of selecting a different network here. So in this case, we could select the production VM port group that we just created. Okay? Okay, so we don't want to do that right now. Let's get back to our host. Okay, so let me just go ahead and excuse me, delete this from here. So I'll delete this production port group. Okay, what I could also do, let's hit back this icon again, the add networking icon. So what I could also do is create a separate vSwitch. So a new standard switch. We need to assign an adapter that's not currently being used in the infrastructure. So we hit the plus sign here. So this is VMNIC 1. So recall VMNIC 0 is added to the virtual switch 0. So VMNIC 1, this is the only available adapter. So we'll click yes on that and then hit next. Okay, so our production VM port group now is on a different vSwitch. So let's just hit next and finish off with this. Okay, so notice now we have two virtual switches, vSwitch 1, which is just like how we got it, and then vSwitch 2 is with our production VM port group, and then this is assigned to the VMNIC 1. So I'll go ahead here and delete this vSwitch 1. Okay, okay, so we remain with the vSwitch 0 that we started with. Okay, VM kernel adapter. So say we need to create another adapter for our IP storage or iSCSI traffic. Okay, so we'll select VM kernel network adapter. We could go on the same standard switch or go on a different one, so we'll create a new one. We'll assign our adapter again, VMNIC 1, and let's give this a name. So let's call this iSCSI. Okay, we could assign a VLAN ID to this. Assign VLAN ID 30, IPv4, and then we could choose a stack here too. For this, we wouldn't select enable any of the services here. Actually, with vSphere 6.0, a number of services has been added, but we'll get into this a bit later. Like provisioning traffic, this is for your cloning operation. This wasn't here previously, and you have a couple more here. So let's just leave this as it is and hit next. So what you would want to do is assign a static IP address here. For now, we'll just leave this in our testing environment automatic. Okay, so another thing, what you would want to do is have for iSCSI or your IP traffic, you would want all of this to be on your same in one broadcast domain basically. Okay, so you would have your put an IP address here, and on your physical storage, it should connect over on the same VLAN. Okay, so let's just finish this off. Okay, so now we have VMK1, and this is for iSCSI. Okay, um, so for now though, I just want to delete this and show you how we could create one for vMotion traffic. Let's just do that. Okay, let's just go through this really fast. Okay, let me just cancel this out here. Physical adapter. Okay, let me just get rid of this here. Okay. Okay, good. So let's get back into this. Sorry about that. So VM kernel adapter, we'll create a new standard switch here. And we'll add our adapter, VMNIC1 again. Hit next. Yes. So in this case here, we'll select vMotion traffic. You just give it a name there. We could just put a VLAN or leave that blank. vMotion traffic. Okay. I just want you guys to have a look at how this would show up in our interface once we select that. Okay, so here it is. If you notice across here, it would be enabled now for vMotion traffic, this VM kernel adapter. Okay, what you could also do is deploy a second adapter for your management network, which I would highly recommend for redundancy. So you could build another VM kernel and just add management traffic onto that. Okay. This is our physical adapter, as I mentioned previously. This is where we would manage our physical adapters and have information concerning that.